Born in Bombay, the present-day city of Mumbai, India, Biggingee Sorabjee Poochee had already opened his first photographic studio before deciding to immigrate to Australia around 1860. He found his way to Ipswich towards the end of 1863 and established what was the first professional and permanent photographic studio in the ever-growing township. Poochee is perhaps best known for his Panorama of Ipswich. Photography had been found to be an ideal tool to provide accurate topographical information, and the photographic panorama became popular in its printed form and as a guide for lithographers, providing illustrated content for books. The first thing to note about Poochee's panorama is that it was a technical achievement. Taking a photograph outside the controlled setting of the studio was not an easy task in the 1860s, let alone taking a panorama where all the panels had to line up exactly. Present in the image are the beginnings of many of our institutions and buildings that continue to dominate their streetscapes and our historic consciousness. To the left, high on the hill, is Goolawin, the original two-storey Ipswich Hospital with its south-facing veranda. There is the old courthouse on East Street, St Stephen's Presbyterian Church, and the Tattersalls Hotel on the corner of East and South Streets. On the southwest corner of Brisbane and Thorn Streets is Queensland's first Masonic temple. In the second panel, Claremont takes up the centre position. Just to the left we can see the Bank of New South Wales and the Palais Royal, both on the corners of Brisbane and East Streets. Further along Brisbane Street is the then recently built School of Arts, St Paul's Anglican Church, and the Crib and Foot department store building. In the distance, on another hill, are the first buildings of Ipswich Grammar School. On the right edge of this panel, the long roof structure is the first railway station in Ipswich. In front of Claremont, the two-storey stone building was once John Panton's store. The third panel is dominated by the Bremer River and the newly erected iron rail bridge that links North Ipswich to the commercial and civic centre. The first St Mary's is visible on the southern bank, just behind the railway line. Shipping stores, wharfs, immigration depot, and the original railway workshops all feature here as a testimony to Ipswich's place as the head of navigation and the gateway to the fertile farming land of the Darling Downs. As the Bremer River snakes around, heading towards the basin, the first houses and business of North Ipswich are shown, behind the North Ipswich Reserve and with Pine Mountain in the background. Finally, the basin itself, where the paddle steamers that transported goods and people between Ipswich and Brisbane could turn. In the centre of this image, elevated on the bank of the river, is Leslie Sawmills, along with the scattered dwellings that would become the suburbs of North Ipswich and Basin Pocket. It is thought that Poochee was commissioned to take this panorama of Ipswich, which was sent to England to be reprinted as a lithograph for reproduction in the book Short Sea Route to Australia. This guidebook to the Singapore route to Australia featured information and lithographs of several Queensland towns, including Townsville, Gladstone, Maryborough, Brisbane and Ipswich. But what is most interesting about the lithograph version of Poochee's photographic panorama is what the English lithographer did to it. Poochee's panorama celebrates the industrialisation of Ipswich. The 1865 railway bridge takes a prominent position in the centre of the image. The new railway workshops are clearly visible in Poochee's vision. The Poochee panorama depicts a modern industrial town, the new Athens, leading the economic growth of the colony of Queensland that was then only 6 years past separation. The lithograph, on the other hand, blends the iron railway bridge into its surrounds. Industry is replaced with a pleasant rural landscape where country squires ride their horses across open grasslands. The landscape is softened. Even the gum trees take on the resemblance of their English cousins. It would be another 20 years before Ipswich could celebrate its industrial and agricultural achievements in photographic form to an English audience, through the work of Benjamin and Laura Taylor in their IXL studios, when they published The People, Places and Industry of West Moreton in 1899. But for the 1870s, new migrants and investors to Ipswich were being enticed by an idyllic English country scene, untainted by the Industrial Revolution that was overwhelming the British landscape.